What's up, guys? We are in week 2 of our series, Do Something. And we're talking about all about justice, which is when things are right and fair and good and equal. However, an injustice is anything that's unfair, unequal, and things you know in your gut are just not right. You'll hear lots of conversations about injustices in our world in the media. In fact, I'm confident you probably hear about those on a daily basis. Some of those injustices include things like racism, homophobia, bullying, homelessness, abuse, poverty. Basically, any situation where a person is being treated as if they do not have equal worth and value, that's an injustice. God deeply loves and values all people. So that might make you wonder, well, then how do these injustices exist? How do they keep existing? Why do they continue to happen? And why doesn't someone do something? Well, one of the reasons that injustices exist is that we all want to feel worthy and valuable. However, sometimes we get this false idea that we need to be superior to other people in order to have value. So that's when things like racism begin. It comes from this need of white people to believe that they are superior to people of color in order to feel like they have some sense of value. They're getting this sense of value by saying, well, at least I'm better than that person or those people. Homophobia is a really similar idea. It's this idea of a straight person looking down on someone that is a lesbian or gay or bisexual or transgender by saying they're of lesser worth and I, as a straight person, am of higher worth and value. And so the issue here is this idea of worth being centered around thinking of oneself as being better than other people. And that's a real issue. And it's the same issue that happens when we look down on people that are poor or homeless. We're like, well, at least I'm not like them. And it's this way of trying to tell ourselves that we have worth by trying to view ourselves as being superior to other people. But it's this idea of thinking that we need to be better than other people that creates injustice, because we have a fear of thinking of ourselves as equal to others. You know, that sounds nice on paper, it sounds nice as an ideal, but we're really afraid of being equal to others because there's a part of us that doesn't want to be equal. There's a part of us that wants to feel like we're better than other people. But justice and equality is centered around the idea that all people have equal value. God loves each one of us equally. And that's wonderful. But sometimes that can make us a little nervous because we want to feel like we're special or better. And God says, you're wonderful and I love you and you're great. But I also love everyone else and I think they're wonderful and I think they're great. And we see evidence of how important equality and justice is to Jesus based on how he talks about his own purpose while he's here on earth. You can read this in the book of Luke in chapter 4, verses 18 through 19. Jesus says this, he says, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom to the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, and to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Jesus says that God has sent him to proclaim good news to who? To the poor. To proclaim freedom to the prisoners and recovery of sight to the blind, and to set the oppressed free. Jesus is making it very clear that people that are often made to feel like they are of lesser value are absolutely loved and valuable. People that are often ignored or forgotten or judged, that Jesus is saying, I have not forgotten about you. He specifically talks about how important they are to his purpose. And so it's very clear that Jesus is saying, you matter to me. Not only is knowing the value of other people important to Jesus, but he also reminds us that it's important for us to live our lives this way as well. So what does that mean for us? Does it mean that we should go around feeling bad about the privileges and the good things that we have? No. Sometimes we tend to think that the point is that we're just supposed to feel bad about the good things we have in our life. And if that's what we think is the goal, we're missing the point. It doesn't mean that we're just supposed to sit around and feel bad. But what we're reminded of by Jesus is that we need to humble ourselves. We need to humble ourselves to realize that we are people that are worthy of love, and that we want to be treated according to our God-given value. But everyone else is also worthy of love and worthy of being treated according to their God-given value. So we need to have a humble spirit. The goal is not to think of ourselves as bad or guilty for the things we do have, but instead to be humble and to be generous and to advocate for others so that everyone can have equal treatment. Paul, a leader in the early church, wrote about this in his letter to the early Christians in the church of Philippi. He says this in the letter called Philippians. This is in chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. He says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. That's what we're called to do as followers of Christ. We are to do nothing out of our own selfishness, but instead, we are to value others and look out for their interests, do what is good for them. So that when we have that feeling inside of us that someone is not being treated in a way that is right and good, that we would have the courage to first refuse to participate in treating them as if they are less, and instead advocate for them to be treated according to their God-given worth. This is how we rid the world of injustice. We treat people with dignity and goodness, and we humble ourselves to be reminded that everyone is of equal value to God. And that we can't go around acting like we're better than other people, acting like we're superior. Because even though we want to feel special, we're reminded that God, yes, he loves us, but he also loves them. And he commands us to love them as well. That we are of equal value to God. So how can you do this? Well, when you see someone that is being bullied, first you can refuse to participate in bullying them. You don't go along with it. You call it out and you say, that's wrong. And you know what? That is going to take courage and it's going to be super uncomfortable. But that's how we make real change in the world. And making real powerful change is going to take some courage. When you hear somebody make jokes or remarks about people of a different race or about someone being gay, you don't go along with it. You don't laugh at it. You don't act like it's okay. You say something. And yes, that is going to take courage. And it might cost you something. But if we are serious about knowing that all people are worthy of love and being dignified and of equal value, then we're going to have to risk something. We're going to have to stick our necks out there and say, you know what, that's not okay. When you see the way that groups of people are being treated just because they're poor, do something. You listen to their story, hear about their lives, learn from them. There's a lot we probably don't understand. You also want to resist being judgmental. Just learn about their lives, and then you can be generous with what you have. This is how we participate in the justice that God is all about. Because we are invited not just to notice the injustice in the world, but to be people that do something.